So, my sister decided to start planning her wedding at our family lake house, which I inherited. When I told her no, she launched a GoFundMe. Now my mother is suing me. If you think that sounds insane, just wait. Hey everyone, today's story will absolutely blow your mind. Before we get into it, if you like this kind of content, please hit that subscribe button. The channel has been a little quiet lately, and your support means everything. Let's get right to it. This post was originally found on Reddit. Using a throwaway account for obvious reasons, a 32-year-old male, need some perspective on a family situation that's completely tearing me apart. 6 months ago, my incredible grandfather passed away. He was a man who built his construction business from nothing and taught me the value of hard work. When I was 15, he started bringing me to job sites every summer to learn the trade. By 18, I was working for him full-time while going to community college at night. My sister Emily, who's 25, chose a different path. She went to an expensive private university where she studied art history. My parents took out loans to help her pay for it all. She spent her summers traveling Europe with friends and only saw my grandpa maybe twice a year, usually around the holidays when gifts were involved. I'm not judging her choices, we're just different people. When Grandpa's will was read, he left me his beautiful lake house in Vermont. It's a 4-bedroom cabin on 10 acres with private lake access. Valued at approximately $850,000, Emily received $50,000 in cash and his vintage watch collection, which was worth about $30,000. The rest of his estate was given to various charities. The will also included a letter explaining his choices. For me, he wrote about our shared memories at the lake house, learning to fish, rebuilding the dock, and the carpentry lessons we shared. He said he wanted the property to go to someone who understood its true value beyond just money. For Emily, he wrote that he was proud of her artistic pursuits and hoped the money would help her career. My mother, Janet, who is 54, was furious. She has been calling me daily, insisting that family wealth should be divided equally among the children, no matter what my grandfather wanted. She claims he was old-fashioned and played favorites because I was male and worked in construction like him. She's demanding I sell the house and split the money with Emily. This is where I'm conflicted. I love my sister, and we've always been close. But Emily has started making comments about how lucky I am and how the house could solve all her problems. She has around $80,000 in student loan and credit card debt. My mother has even involved the rest of our family. My aunt called me selfish at Sunday dinner, and my uncle said I was disrespecting family values. They all say Grandpa would have wanted me to take care of Emily, and that I'm greedy for keeping the whole property. The thing is, I don't want to sell. The house has a ton of sentimental value, and my wife, Sarah, and I want to start a family. We dream of our kids spending summers there, just like I did. We currently live in a small apartment in Boston, and the house represents a future we couldn't otherwise afford. My mother's latest argument is that I already have a stable career running my own construction company, while Emily is struggling. She says it's my duty as the older brother to even things out. I've tried to compromise. I told Emily she could use the house whenever she wants. I offered to pay for her flights to visit and even offered to host her future wedding there. I also offered to help her with her loans out of my own savings, but my mother says that's not enough. She wants me to either sell the house and split the money or buy Emily out for $400,000, which is half the value minus her inheritance. So Reddit ite for keeping my grandfather's lake house even though it led to an unfair inheritance. Update 1. 3 weeks later, this escalated quickly. Thanks to everyone who responded to my first post. The consensus was clear. I was not the jerk, and I should honor my grandfather's wishes. I felt validated but was still hoping for a peaceful solution. That hope vanished this weekend. First, a little backstory. After my original post, I had a long conversation with Emily. She admitted she was hurt by the inheritance difference but said she understood Grandpa's reasons. We hugged it out, and I thought everything was fine. I repeated all my previous offers and even said I'd help her with a down payment on a condo when she was ready. She seemed genuinely grateful. My mother, however, doubled down. She started a family group chat titled Fairness for Emily, and started sharing articles about inheritance inequality and how it destroys families. I muted the chat, but my wife, Sarah, showed me the highlights. Janet was trying to build a case that I was a manipulative son who turned grandpa against his own granddaughter. Last Thursday, Emily called me excitedly to tell me her boyfriend, Mark, had proposed. I was thrilled for her and immediately offered the lake house for their wedding. She squealed with joy and started talking about a rustic, elegant summer wedding next June. Fast forward to Sunday. Sarah and I drove up to the lake house for the weekend to do some maintenance. The place needed work. Grandpa had been ill for 2 years, and things had been neglected. When we arrived, we found 3 cars in the driveway, Emily's marks, and a van labeled Evergreen Wedding Planning. Inside, Emily was showing a wedding planner around my house like she owned it. They were discussing removing walls and updating the kitchen for the reception. The planner was taking pictures and measurements. When I asked what was happening, Emily cheerfully announced she was getting a head start on planning our family. Lake house wedding, note the pronoun she used. The planner handed me her card and said she was so excited to transform this hidden gem into a venue. I pulled Emily aside and reminded her that this was my house, not a family property. She rolled her eyes and said, "Come on, James, we both know Mom's right. This place should belong to both of us. I'm just planning my wedding at my family's lake house." That's when I noticed she'd already posted on Instagram. "Can't wait to marry my best friend at our family's beautiful lake property. 2 hearts. #LakeHouseWedding, #FamilyEstate, #blessed. I told everyone they needed to leave. Emily started crying, saying I was ruining her engagement joy and being controlling about a house I didn't even pay for. Mark tried to mediate, suggesting we all calm down. The wedding planner looked mortified and quickly left. Emily called our mother, who arrived within an hour. She lives 40 minutes away, so she must have been speeding. Janet walked in like she owned the place, completely ignored Sarah, and started yelling at me about traumatizing Emily on her special planning day. The argument that followed was ugly. Highlights include Janet claiming Grandpa was mentally declining when he wrote the will, Emily claiming I manipulated a sick old man for financial gain, and Janet threatening to contest the will. The estate lawyer already told me she has no grounds. Emily was sobbing that I was stealing her dream wedding venue. The final straw was when my mother called Sarah a gold digger who hit the jackpot. Sarah grew up in foster care, worked 3 jobs to put herself through nursing school, and insisted on a prenup before we married to prove she wasn't after money. That's when I lost it. I told them all to leave my property immediately or I would call the police for trespassing. Emily screamed that I couldn't ban her from her inheritance. Janet said I was dead to her unless I did the right thing. They left, but not before Emily posted a tearful video on Facebook about her brother gatekeeping family property and ruining her wedding dreams. The post went viral in our extended family. I've received dozens of messages calling me heartless and selfish. Sarah and I spent the rest of the weekend in silence, trying to process what happened. I found myself talking to Grandpa's picture, apologizing for the drama around his beloved lake house. I have now explicitly revoked my offer to host Emily's wedding. I've also installed security cameras and changed the locks, as Emily had. Apparently made copies of the spare key. My lawyer friend says I should document everything in case they escalate. The family group chat has exploded with cousins I haven't spoken to in years weighing in. My dad, who divorced my mom 10 years ago, texted me saying he was proud of me for standing my ground. That made me cry. I don't know how to fix this. I love my sister, but she's showing a side of herself I've never seen before. My mother has always been controlling, but this level of manipulation is new. I'm starting to wonder if I ever really knew them. Edit to clarify some questions. The will was properly executed with witnesses and a lawyer. Grandpa was evaluated by his doctor 2 months before changing the will to prevent challenges. The house has been legally transferred to my name, and I have title insurance. I'm not worried about legal challenges, just the destruction of my family. Update 2. 2 months later, I genuinely never thought I'd be back with another update, but The situation has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Buckle up. After my last post, I followed Reddit's advice and went low contact with my mother and Emily. I didn't block them entirely, but I restricted their social media access and only responded to actual emergencies. For about 3 weeks, things were quiet. I should have known they were planning something. It started with a letter from a lawyer, not a lawsuit yet, but a formal request for mediation to resolve the unfair distribution of the Patterson estate. Patterson was my grandfather's last name. The letter claimed my grandfather was unduly influenced, and that the will didn't reflect his true intentions of equal treatment. I immediately called the estate attorney who handled Grandpa's will.
He laughed, actually laughed, and said it was the most baseless claim he'd seen in 30 years.
He pulled out Grandpa's file, which included a medical evaluation confirming mental competency, a video recording of Grandpa explaining his bequests, and previous wills showing a consistent pattern. I always got the lake house, and Emily always got cash or valuables. The file also contained signed statements from witnesses, his doctor, and accountant, all confirming no undue influence. The lawyer said my mother and Emily were fishing, hoping I'd settled to avoid family drama. He was right. 2 days later, Emily showed up at my construction company office with Mark and a different lawyer. She was wearing what I can only describe as a sympathy costume. No makeup, messy hair, and deliberately wrinkled clothes. The lawyer introduced himself as a specialist in family inheritance disputes and handed me a document. They were no longer just asking for half the lake house value. The document demanded a total of $655,000, broken down as 50% of the lake house value, $425,000. Emotional distress damages for being excluded from the property, $100,000 reimbursement for wedding venue changes, $50,000 coverage of Emily's student loans since I got the educational advantage of working with Grandpa, $80,000 I actually lost, which was apparently the wrong response. Emily burst into tears, which I'm now convinced were fake, and wailed about how I was enjoying her misery. Mark comforted her while giving me a death glare. The lawyer said this was a generous offer to avoid a messy public trial. I asked them to leave. Emily's tears stopped instantly, and she hissed, "You'll regret this, James. Mom was right about you." The mask had fully slipped. That evening I found out what she meant. Emily had started a GoFundMe titled, "Help Me Fight for My Grandfather's Legacy." The description was a masterpiece of manipulation. She wrote, "My name is Emily Patterson, and I'm heartbroken to share my story. When my beloved grandfather passed, I discovered he'd left our family's historic lake house, worth nearly $1 million, solely to my older brother. This came as a shock, as Grandpa always said the house would be for the family. I believe my grandfather was pressured in his final years. My brother, who worked in Grandpa's construction business, had exclusive access to him while I was away at college, pursuing the education Grandpa always said he wanted for me. Now I'm drowning in student debt while my brother enjoys $1 million property. All I want is fairness, to buy my own home, pay off my education, and honor what I believe were my grandfather's true wishes. Please help me fight for justice and family equality." She set the goal at $50,000 for legal fees. Within 24 hours, she'd raised $7,000, mostly from extended family and friends who didn't know the full story. The comments were brutal. "James should be ashamed. Greedy men always push out the women. Elder abuse is real. Report him." I was advised not to respond publicly, but I couldn't help myself. I posted a single comment with the facts. The will was legally sound. Emily received $80,000 in cash and valuables, and the inheritance reflected our different relationships with Grandpa. My comment was deleted within an hour, and Emily made it so I couldn't comment on the post again. Then came the social media campaign. Emily started posting old photos of her and Grandpa with captions like, "I miss you every day. I promise I'm fighting for what's right." She conveniently chose photos from when she was young, none from the past 10 years when she barely visited. My mother joined in, posting essays about inheritance inequality and sexism in family wealth distribution. She started a hashtag, Hashtag justice for Emily. Their friends shared it, and local influencers picked it up. A regional news blog ran a story. Local woman fights for fair inheritance after grandfather leaves everything to brother. The reporter had only interviewed Emily and my mother and didn't mention that Emily had inherited significant money. The pressure mounted. I received daily calls from family members saying, "Just give her something to make this stop." Messages from high school friends asked how I could do this to Emily. I started getting 1-star reviews on my company's Google page calling me a thief and an elder abuser. A petition was even started at my church. Sarah was harassed at her hospital. Someone left printouts of Emily's GoFundMe in the break room with, "Is this your husband?" written on them. Her coworkers started treating her differently. We drove to the lake house to escape for a weekend, only to find a for sale sign in the yard. Emily had called a realtor and pretended to be the owner. The realtor was showing the property to a couple when we arrived. I had to show documentation proving ownership and threaten legal action before they left. That night, as Sarah and I sat on the dock, I made a decision. I called my lawyer and told him to prepare a cease and desist letter for the harassment, defamation, GoFundMe fraud, and attempted sale of my property. I also did something Grandpa would have approved of. I documented everything. Every post, message, and false claim. I created a timeline showing Emily's actual relationship with Grandpa, the missed birthdays, the unreturned calls, the visits that only happened when she needed money. Most importantly, I digitized something I'd forgotten about, Grandpa's journals. He'd kept detailed diaries for 40 years. The entries about Emily were heartbreaking. One entry from 2 months before he died, when my mother claims he was mentally declining, read, "Last will appointment today." Lawyer asked about Emily, told him she's getting cash, easier for her to use. The lake should go to someone who sees. It has more than property value. I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow to discuss next steps. I'm done trying to preserve relationships with people who only see dollar signs where memories should be. Grandpa didn't just leave me a house. He left me a reminder of what real family looks like. Emily and my mother have chosen greed over family, lies over truth, and manipulation over love. I'm choosing to honor the man who actually knew what family meant. I'll update once more after the legal proceedings. Final update, 4 months later. This will be my final update. I've hesitated to write this because it means accepting that my family, as I knew it, is gone. But I owe closure to those who followed this journey, and honestly, I need to write this for my own peace of mind. After my last post, my lawyer and I sent a comprehensive cease and desist letter to both Emily and my mother. It detailed the defamation, harassment, fraudulent GoFundMe, and attempted property fraud. We demanded they immediately stop all defamatory posts, take down the GoFundMe and refund all donors, publicly retract their false claims, and have no further contact with my wife or me outside of legal channels. Emily's response came within 48 hours, not through her lawyer but on a Facebook Live video. She sat surrounded by tissues, crying about how her abusive brother was trying to silence her with legal intimidation. She painted herself as a David fighting Goliath. The video went viral. Hashtag justice formally became hashtag stand with Emily. Local news picked it up. The narrative was compelling. Wealthy contractor uses lawyers to silence struggling artist sister. The truth didn't matter anymore. The story did. What Emily didn't realize was that going public meant everything became fair game. My lawyer had warned them that continued defamation would result in us releasing our evidence. They called our bluff. We created a simple website, The Truth About the Patterson Estate, where we posted the full will with Grandpa's letter, the medical competency evaluation, the video of Grandpa explaining his bequests, excerpts from his journals, documentation of what Emily actually inherited, $80,000 value, screenshots of her lavish social media from the past 5 years, and proof that her student loans were 40% credit card debt from shopping. The most damning evidence was a series of texts we legally obtained during discovery where Emily wrote, "Once I get James to crack, I'm buying a condo in Back Bay. Even if we don't win legally, I'll have enough for a down payment. These idiots actually believe I was close with Grandpa. The backlash was swift. The GoFundMe was investigated and shut down, and Emily had to refund over $15,000. Family members who had donated called me to apologize, saying they'd been blinded by her tears. But my mother doubled down and filed an actual lawsuit contesting the will. The trial lasted 3 days. My mother's lawyer painted me as a calculating manipulator who had isolated a dying old man. Our defense was simple: facts. Grandpa's doctor and accountant testified about his mental sharpness and rational decisions. We played the video of Grandpa, clear-eyed and articulate, explaining why he left me the lake house. The judge's ruling was swift and harsh. Not only did he uphold the will, but he also ordered my mother and Emily to pay my legal fees for bringing a frivolous lawsuit intended to harass. He called their actions a cynical attempt to override the clear wishes of the deceased. The aftermath was brutal. My mother sent me one final email. You may have won legally, but you've lost your family. I hope that house was worth your sister and mother. Emily posted a final Instagram story. Sometimes you learn who people really are when money's involved. Moving on and healing from toxic family. The irony wasn't lost on me, but here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. 2 weeks after the trial, I got a call from Mark, Emily's fiancé. He asked to meet privately. Over coffee, he told me he had ended their engagement. I couldn't marry someone who could lie so easily, he said. He revealed that Emily had already spent her entire inheritance. The $50,000 in cash was gone in 6 months on a luxury car lease, designer clothes, and a trip to Bali. She had also sold the watches for less than half their value. She kept saying once she got your lake house money, we could have the perfect life, he said. But I realized there would always be another thing she deserved. Last week, I received a letter from a debt collection agency forwarded from Emily's last known address. She listed me as a reference on a loan application. I had my lawyer respond with a cease and desist. Through mutual friends, I've learned Emily is living with our mother and is telling people she's writing a book about inheritance trauma. She started a new GoFundMe for her uncertified art therapy practice and is engaged again to someone she met 2 months ago. My mother has told the extended family that I'm dead to her, and I've stopped caring. Sarah and I spent last weekend at the lake house. We finished all the repairs. The dock is rebuilt, and the kitchen is updated properly. We also found out we're expecting our first child, a boy. We're planning to name him Thomas, after Grandpa. As I sat on the dock watching the sunset, I thought about what this whole experience has taught me. First, people will show you who they are when money is involved. The inheritance didn't change Emily and my mother, it exposed them. Second, family isn't about blood. My real family is Sarah, our son, my dad who supported me, and the memory of a grandfather who knew me better than I knew myself. Third, honor the wishes of those who have passed. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. Fourth, document everything. The journals, the video, the medical records, they saved me from a false narrative. And finally, sometimes losing family is actually gaining freedom. I mourn the family I thought I had, not the one I actually had. To those facing similar situations, stand your ground. Honor the deceased's wishes. Don't let emotional manipulation override legal documents. Someone who truly loves you won't try to take what was freely given to you. Grandpa's lake house is more than property. It's a testament to a man who valued character over blood, effort over entitlement, and truth over manipulation. Every time I cast a line off the dock we rebuilt, I thank him for seeing what I couldn't. Emily and my mother made their choices. They chose greed over gratitude, lies over love, manipulation over memory. They'll have to live with that. I've chosen peace, truth, and the legacy of a man who knew that family isn't about splitting everything equally. It's about giving what's right to those who've earned it through love, time, and genuine connection. This lake house isn't my inheritance. My inheritance is the knowledge that I stood for what was right, even when it cost me everything I thought I had. Thank you all for your support. It's time to stop looking back and start building the future Grandpa envisioned when he left me this gift. To Grandpa, I kept my promise. The lake house remains with someone who sees its true value. Your legacy lives on, not in the timber and stone, but in the lessons you taught and the man you helped me become. Until we meet again, tight lines and following seas. James.